We'll bring our July council meeting to order, please. We have the invocation, which will be done by Mr. Jim Robinson. And if you would immediately after that, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings which you have bestowed upon us. Please forgive us of our many sins. Also, please be with us this evening and guide us in things that we think, say, and do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can't hear you.
I don't think anybody can, we can hear Butch either. We can hear Butch either, I'm not sure any of us were.
Test.
Yeah, we hear you.
I need to be closer, don't I? Try it again.
Here.
Hello? You just have to throw it. Okay. Last month, during the Ward 2 report, I made a motion to hold this ordinance 3025 in abeyance, and it was seconded by Dr. Jones, and City Council lawyer, Mr. James, said that it had to be in writing. And however, that needs to be amended, but a motion was made and it was seconded, and that should be reflected in the minutes.
Okay. Anything else? If nothing else, they'll stand as written. We'll get that switched. We're going to skip to item 7. I think we've got some citizens wanting to speak, and then somebody has to leave, I think. So I'll go to item 7. Jennifer?
Virginia McJunkin.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank Mayor Womack, Dr. Jones, Mr. Robinson, and Mr. DiPietro for making time to meet with me. Each of you gave me at least an hour of your time to listen and discuss my questions, concerns, and ideas on several topics. I appreciate that so much. Last time I spoke, I said, please listen more. You can't listen enough, and you did. I appreciate it. I look forward to scheduling similar meetings with Ms. Webb, Ms. Davidson, Mr. Garrison, and Ms. Brazil very soon. I just hadn't gotten to you yet. I didn't forget you. I ask you all to seriously consider changing the ordinance regarding who may speak at council meetings. I would ideally like to allow all with a physical address of 29640 or 29642 to speak. However, I believe a reasonable compromise at this time is to allow city residents, property owners, and those holding an active city business license to speak. I want to thank Mr. Robinson specifically for his input on this and his help on thinking that out. He has some wonderful ideas for the logistics involved in implementing this change. I also spoke with Ms. Webb before the meeting. I appreciate you listening also. Finally, I want to ask you all to please vote no regarding the proposed annexation of the Sheriff Mill Brown Road area, not because I believe that's going to stop the development. I'm pretty certain it won't. However, I'm hopeful that the county will soon adopt more stringent development ordinances than will exist inside our city limits. Now, that is not to disparage the hard work of Mr. DiPietro. He has worked really hard on the new zoning ordinances. They have promise. I only say this to point out that county and city regulations and ordinances regarding development are going to be different and should be different, because inside the city versus outside the city is just completely different. I'd also like to welcome my son, Wyatt McDuncan. He is a rising 7th grader at Geddes Middle School, and he was very excited to come see how our local government works. Thank you for having us.
Sam Norris.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hey, Sam.
I am the president of the Foothills Playhouse, and I would like to speak on the fact that in 2 weeks, we're going to have a really, really good play, the Beverly Hillbillies. And just to let you know that if you don't have tickets, you better get them now, because the first weekend, Friday and Sunday, are sold out. Saturday is getting close. And the second weekend they're selling pretty fast. So it's a very, very enjoyable 2 hours, and it's cheap entertainment. But please come and see us. If you don't know where we are, we're in the old West End Hall. It used to be West End Elementary. It's now the West End Hall, and it's across the street from the silos. So we would love to have you come and see us, and I know you'll enjoy it. Thank you.
Sam, I called you today and didn't get you, but I was wanting to let y'all know that you'll be receiving a $25,000 grant with no payback.
All right.
That is not, that is not from the city. I was instrumental in helping get it, but it comes from the state.
Thank you so much.
Hey, team. Woo!
Kathy Roberts.
Good evening. This is my first meeting. Couple things. I moved here about a year ago, and I noticed quite a few things that I haven't seen addressed. Have you ever asked yourself, when you look at a property and it's filled with kudzu, how much tax revenue you're losing? How many things that are lost in that kudzu? Boats, homes, used cars, trash. That's tax revenue that we could be using to build more homes, or to build another business, or just to make it more livable. The other thing, it's killing our beautiful landscapes. South Carolina is so gorgeous, but when it's filled with kudzu, it looks like nobody cares about their city, they cares about their state. The other thing is I proposed to the city planning just recently about getting speed bumps, because it seems like almost every city street around here is a racetrack. What are we doing about that? We're not giving out tickets anymore, so how are we slowing these people down? My personal street alone, they go 30, 50, 90 miles an hour. It's ridiculous. We need to think about safety, not just for the people that live there, but people that visit, the people that stay here and live here full time. It's crazy. I almost got hit twice because these idiots aren't paying attention to the road. The other thing is, I want to find out if there's any noise ordinances. Radios being blasted out, and the cars with their bass thump, 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 thump. Gives me a headache. I don't know about you guys, but it's annoying. Or do we have a noise ordinance? And why aren't we regulating that and giving out tickets? The other thing is, I'm trying to figure out why my water smells and tastes like bleach. Has anybody looked into that? Is anybody else having these issues? Their water is just
That's not the
nasty.
city.
Easley Combined Utilities.
Call them? Okay, that's good to know. The neighborhoods that are on hills, are we doing anything to improve it? Because this last big storm that we had, I'm waiting for my lakes out back to be stocked with fish, because I have so much water that comes off the hills. And the city's not doing anything to try to improve that situation. And I'm not in the floodplain, but I have lakes everywhere. And lastly, I know this is probably a state issue, but it needs to be addressed as a local issue as well. Why are we paying personal property tax when we already pay sales tax, excise tax, and other taxes on our vehicles? Where is that money going? And why there's only like 3 states in the whole entire country that you have to pay personal property tax? I want to know where that money goes and how it's being used. because in 10 years, I could buy another whole car. So that's my concerns. Hopefully, we see some answers.
Did you leave your telephone number on there so we can?
Yes, I
somebody
did.
call you? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Good girl, get him. Maybe not today. I want y'all to consider voting no on the zoning ordinance today because I personally do not think it's really ready to go. My career in the last 20 years was a business systems analyst for 2 major corporations. My job was a liaison between the customer and the programmer. These projects range from several $100,000 to in the millions. My position required that I have clear and concise documents and provide what was required to the customer. So what do you think would have happened if I created a document and said, if it doesn't work, we'll just change it? I would probably have been fired. The zoning ordinance is no difference. It needs to be clear, it needs to be concise, and it needs to be absolutely correct. There is a reason why it's called a zoning ordinance. If it was a living document, it would just be a plan. And the other issue I found is the drafts. I pulled up the draft that said final. I saw something interesting. I called Miss Davison and told her to look on page 20. Her page 20 did not have that item on it. Hers was on page 13. So what's happened between the document that y'all received and the draft that's online? So, has there been changes made since the Planning Commission approved it? The FRD is an ordinance, but I don't see the FRD ordinance transferred into that document. There's a tiny home in there, and it says see ordinance. Where's the ordinance for that? So, isn't this putting the cart in front of the horse? Said, I have no faith in this document, so it needs to be voted no until it's come to a document that can be relied on and the ordinances can be followed. Thank you.
Neil Garrett.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. I really didn't intend to speak tonight, so I don't have a prepared message like a lot of these folks do. Oops, sorry about that. I already broke something. Coming in the front door tonight, I noticed that we are taking city assets and paying them to sit out there and determine whether or not we can speak in this room. This room should be for anybody who lives in the city. It should be for those who are looking to be annexed into the city. If you're looking to force people to pay extra taxes, to force them to go by the rules that y'all make up, they should have representation in this room. I've lived in this city my whole life. I've watched y'all take us to one thing of trash instead of open trash pickup. We've lost our recycling pickup. We've lost our grass clippings picked up, but yet y'all raise taxes every chance you've gotten. We've lost stuff, benefits we've had, and you're wanting to force these people to put up with what we're already having to put up with because we're already part of the city. If you own a business in this town, if you own property in this town, you have a right to speak, and if you're looking to be annexed, they have a right to speak here. I'm disappointed in everybody in this room who's let this happen, and I do believe y'all are not in touch with the people who are voting for you and the people you are representing. The people in this city, if you talk to them, they don't want this growth. They don't want to see what's happening. You can hear it in the restaurants. You can hear it in the drugstores. You need to get in touch with the people you're representing and make sure you're representing them correctly because the elections are coming. That's right. Yeah, that's right. So that's all I have to say tonight.
Jane Heltling.
Hello, it's my first time here. This is regarding the annexation on Sheriff Mill Road. I think it's a shame that you have brought up Ordinance 3025 that was made almost 50 years ago and just now are enforcing it. I have several friends and family members who live in Pickens County who are being affected by your decisions. Why are you not willing to let them speak? Why won't you listen to all the people that are being affected by your decisions? With that said, I have a question for you. Do you think it's right that you get fined for speeding, running a red light, or a stop sign? Well, I agree that there needs to be some kind of repercussion when we have done something wrong. So shouldn't that be true about city officials also? I'm talking about all the flooding problems that have happened to the Leon's family and farm on Nesbitt Lane. The person in charge of planning how development may be put in was too eager to annex more properties into the city, not worrying about what's going on to happen to everyone around them. Now part of the Leon's land has become almost useless due to the constant flooding that occurs almost every time it rains. They have never had these problems until the city annexed 2 different places and let them be built up without thinking of what may happen to those around that area. Should the person who allowed this to happen be fined? We had to contact a state senator to hopefully get this problem resolved, even though the city officials were aware of it and they caused the problem. Why are you trying to annex every piece of property into the city? Isn't it already bad enough driving around Easley, or worse, just trying to get out of your own driveway or parking lot? It's about time to get the infrastructure in place before continuing to let more and more builders come in. It's only common sense. It's time to stop annexing and time to fix our wonderful city and not make it more crowded. Remember that elections are coming up, and I may not know now who I'm voting for yet. If you vote yes for the annexation next month, I know I will not be voting for you. I will be telling all of my friends, family, and neighbors to do the same. Thank you for your time.
Justin Alexander.
Justin Alexander, Ward 5. Ms. McJunkin and Ms. Rainey said a lot of things that I wanted to say, and so I would just say that I definitely do hope that you will consider voting against adopting the zoning ordinance, as it doesn't appear to be a complete document that we can lay our hands on at this point. It does seem to have way more flexibility than an actual, firm document should have. I also would continue to request that you consider live streaming the work sessions. We know that's where a lot of the real decision making goes on. A lot of us work and are just unable to attend the work sessions at this point. And I would also ask that you reconsider the rule on who can speak. My understanding is that that ordinance is discretionary, that it says that it may be limited. And so we know that what City Council does is going to affect our friends, our neighbors who work in the city, who travel through the city, who pay property taxes, who go to restaurants in the city. All of this is going to affect everybody in this area. And so I would ask you to reconsider that, and thank you so much.
Justin Wallace, or John Wallace, I'm sorry.
Good evening. Glad you all get to see me tonight. My name is John Wallace, and I know you wrote it down outside, but put it on your scratch pad. 202 Carnoustie Drive, Smithfields. I come here tonight after going to a county council meeting last month where the residency situation came up. They have a prediction in the county that we will have a 40% increase in residency in this county over the next 10 years. I hope it's not all happening here in Easley. Infrastructure, 50 years as an engineer. We built plants all over the country. We had infrastructure in place before that foundation was laid. infrastructure was always there. We had the power, the water, the sewage, everything accounted for. We had to pay for a lot of it, but it was taken care of. You cannot build subdivisions without knowing what you're gonna do with the effluent, where you're gonna get the electric power. So please, give us something on infrastructure so that we have some foundation that we can go along with. What's this doing downstream to our neighbors? On St. Paul Road, Brushy Creek goes under that road. There's a lake just about 300 yards upstream from that. Belongs to my friend. We were down there talking other business a while back, and I said, "You affected by this upstream subdivision developments?" He said, "You see those logs laying down there?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I go down there once a week after heavy storms and drag them out of here." He said, "Those are old logs. They're washing down from the hills from this water. We never had that before this happened." God bless you all, and thank you very much.
All right, we'll go back, that's item 7. We'll go to item 5, report from council members, Ward 1.
No report, Mayor, but I think Chrisman did have some updates on the rec department and some of our events.
Yes, and we'd like to say thank you for whether they came out and celebrated the 4th of July with us. I had 2 of our interns here. This is Danielle Hess and Anna Kay Wingard. You came down to the 4th of July and in the 3 days. You probably didn't see this because they were moving so much, they were moving so fast that they probably just zoomed right past you. But we just appreciate all the support and effort that went into that from these ladies and then support from the community. We did have a wonderful event. Even though the rain tried to stop us, we still moved forward. Cindy's out there laughing because she knows she was there. We also had Rome Zip Trips this past Friday. You can go back and look at the news station. They came in and interviewed several different members of the community. And then we also had a doodle day, where we invited several cyclists from around the state. There's about 100 of us that started in the city of Pickens, rode into Easley, and they came back into Pickens and just enjoyed the doodle trail for the day. Picked up trash, our nice scenery, and then got to fellowship with them and learn about other amenities across the state. Nice job.
Thank you. Ward 2.
Well, during work session, and I agree with Mr. Alexander, some of the angst over this ordinance 3025 could be somewhat alleviated if the work session was live streamed. Councilman Robinson tonight brought up some possible considerations on how this ordinance could be amended, and because I was prepared tonight, because I had put my motion in writing to request that this be held in abeyance, but I would like to request that this be fast-tracked to include the residents in the city of Easley, the 29642 and 29640, friends and neighbors that live and are impacted by the decisions made at this council. And I'd like to see this modified as quickly as possible, because the one thing is, our country just celebrated and our city just celebrated the Independence Day, and commemorating the adoption of the Declaration of Independence. And there are 3 basic ideas. God made all men equal and gave them rights of liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness. The main business of government is to protect these rights. If a government tries to withhold these rights, the people are free to revolt and set up a new government. So, our friends and neighbors have a right to free speech, and I'd like to see this council expedite the changes to this ordinance so that people are not silenced in our community.
I I'd like to thank everybody who participated from the city in the 4th of July project. I think we went out of our way. It was a lovely celebration. Thank you, Christman. Thank you for the police officers, everybody in Public Works who was out there making this event work. Also like to highlight the fact that we had the Greenway groundbreaking, and we're looking forward to having the Greenway Trail going on. Thank you. No.
Ward 4?
Nothing to report.
No report. Ward 5?
I just want to commend City of Easley and also the Department of Charisma, who we had our first Juneteenth celebration on the 25th of last month. That was a great success. Also thank all the ones that participated in July 4th. Wonderful job, Charisma. And also Camp Greenway from the Police Department, if Major Henry and Charisma would like to give just a short brief of what went on during that time with Camp Greenway. The kids were excited. They had a little skit afterwards, and it was stunning.
Lovely.
And to see the kids just being involved was a good thing. And I would want you guys to kind of, yeah.
Ashley's not here.
We did have 2 weeks of Camp Greenway this year. It was a 3-day event each week. Roughly about 55 kids involved from the community each week. We appreciate the rec department helping us out on you gotta have adults for all those kids. Transportation for all those kids. We took them to a trampoline park, the zoo, did activities with them in the morning. Thank 5 Points Church for hosting us, allowing us to host the event there. This year we did expand it to 2 weeks, and it was a great success. Appreciate all the support.
Ward 6?
Mayor Womack, on a sad note, I learned that longtime Easley resident John McIntyre passed away this past week. Sorry to hear that. And listening to a couple of speakers, it seems that there is a misunderstanding about how the annexation process works in not just Easley, but the state of South Carolina. There are 3 methods by which property can be annexed into a municipality. The first method is the 100% method, in which the petition for annexation is signed by all of the property owners. The second method is the 75% method, where 75% of basically the property owners in the area could request a annexation. There would be a public notice and a public hearing on that. There's also a petition and election method, where 25% of the property owners could request an election, and then there would be an election to determine it. I have never seen any method used in the city except the 100% method, where the property owner is the person or entity requesting annexation. One speaker said, "Why are you trying to annex every piece of property around the city?" It is not the city that initiates the process. It is the property owner. The city cannot annex property against the owner's will. And there was mention earlier about amendments to the ordinance addressing who can speak. And like others have said, I would like to see us add categories to that, and would like to see that done quickly as well. On what I hope is a possibly humorous note, Kathy Roberts was talking to us about kudzu. I wish you'd known Sarah Meese, who said there were 2 things in life she hated: sin and kudzu. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 8 is, we have none second readings. Item 9 is new business. Ordinance A is first reading of ordinance 2023-09 to amend the fiscal year 23-24 operating budget to include one additional resource officer. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to bring to the floor.
Second.
Mayor and council, what we're bringing to you tonight is the school district runs a little behind what the city runs on preparing their budget. And so we'd already approved our budget again as they did last year. But the school district has requested another SRO for our school system. They pay 94 to 95% of their salary. The other 5% is just made up through nutrition of police officers coming and going. So we ask that this be approved first reading for a new SRO for the high school.
Any questions on that? Do we have a call for the question?
I'll call the question.
Call for the question. All in favor of that one, that ordinance on first reading, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Item B, first reading of ordinance 23-10 to adopt the 2023 updated version of the zoning ordinance for the city of Easley. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
First, second.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, what we're bringing to you is for the first reading of the update of the zoning ordinance. I'm going to defer to Mario DiPietro, our planning director, to answer any questions or give us an update on it. Mario, if you would.
He's going to need to be somewhere where people can, you need a microphone.
Engineer?
Better?
Yes.
So briefly, the zoning ordinance was rewritten. The major changes were the reduction in zoning, changing the R6 zone to include more open space, more green space, and buffers. The FRD is mentioned in it, however, is a separate ordinance, and I did not want to incorporate that into the book in case we did make changes to FRD. Other items in there we looked at was additional parking for areas, especially R7.5 and R6. I want to add to one thing that was stated earlier. The ordinance is not a living document, but it's a document that I want to review on a yearly basis instead of a 10-year, 5-year basis. It was intimated that I was saying that if something went wrong, I believe it's a strong ordinance. I believe that if something doesn't work, that we should have the ability to fix it instead of letting it lie 5 years. It just makes more sense to say, let's look at it every year instead of letting it lie. I don't believe there's any such thing as a perfect ordinance. I'm not saying this is a perfect ordinance. I'm just saying it's a strong ordinance and better than it was. Any questions?
I was concerned with the varying density rates.
We had, yeah.
And I think it would be a nice time to explain a little bit about how that works.
The varying density rates work on a basis of
the smaller the property, the denser the property. As you get bigger, it gets less dense. We had an attorney review that, and the attorney said that it looks okay to them. We had ACOG look at that, and ACOG said it met Appalachian Council of Governments, which is a local review. They do review for the city. And they said that everything looked okay in that also. So we had an attorney look at it, we had Appalachian Council of Governments look at it, which is a planning organization.
And they are AICP folks.
They are. And the attorney is an ASACP.
Mario, is there any limitation on who can address the planning commission?
There is not. And we welcome everyone's input. Matter of fact, I hope to get more input on a lot of things. In the next level, this zoning ordinance covers one thing, the land development regulation covers how that design is performed. So the land development regulation, which is the next one to be written, and it still has the strength in that now, we're gonna make some minor changes to that. And that will be drafted also and be reviewed. And I'll try to do a better job on the drafts. But that is how the project is brought into the city for review. So that's the land development regulation.
I have several questions. Now, the draft that was voted on last month at the June 20th meeting, that was the one dated June 8th, 23.
Correct.
Okay. And that was the one that the Planning Commission voted on that document to send to council, correct? Has that document been modified?
It was modified for the numbering system.
Okay, well,
So the pages were modified. Page numbers were modified. But you have the most up-to-date one now.
okay, well, I'll come back and look at that. Question. Did you read this comprehensive plan?
I have.
Pardon?
Yes.
You did, okay. So were the recommendations from the comprehensive plan incorporated into this document?
For the most part.
For the most part, okay. Now, green space is noted 5 times, but it's only listed under 2.606. The flexible, no.
Yes, they are RPH 6.
Nope. It is listed under the 2.603, the RPH, single family home. You have green space, a minimum of 10%. That's it.
Right. There's open space also.
Well, the open space is 30%, but that includes your exterior buffer, your green space, and wetlands.
Correct.
So that's not real open space. I mean, the county at least is looking at, they are at 40 and looking to go to 50. So I don't see 30% being adequate when we have all these apartment buildings and all these dense developments, and then with all these people on top of one another, that there's no room for children, walking trails, and for people to be able to have some room to stretch out. And so I would like to see that increase. The county is doing it, and we were always hearing that the county didn't have any regulations and that we were stricter. Well, in this case, that's not the situation. So I would like to see that increase. Are you going to make a copy of the ACOG review and the attorney review available to council?
It's been verbal, but I can get one. I can get one from you.
I would like to see that, because you had mentioned that it would be reviewed, and I'd like to see the summary from that professional. Because one of the things on page 2 of the document, it references the comprehensive plan dated 1999, and I do understand that it was adopted in 1999, but it has been revised since 2022. And because it would appear by looking at this that it hadn't been done, updated.
I should put latest edition on that.
Now, on page 53 of the comp plan, it has improved communication, encouraged citizen participation in meetings and public hearings or rezoning, subdivision, annexations. How and where has that been adopted?
That will be done in the LDR. So that the land development review is, regulations is where you present the plans to the planning commission.
Okay.
So what that does is it opens the door for people to come and review it.
Because I remember when Petrea was presenting all of this, she had suggested, and has been done in many communities, that developers, before they even, any annexation request comes to the city, that they do a mailing out to a certain area around the property that they're wanting to annex, to let people know that they're looking at it, so that people can go ahead and be involved and know what's happening in their areas. And that was one of her recommendations.
And that sounds good, but the question always comes in is, do they know what they're doing first? So if someone comes in, and it's been addressed many times, if they annex in, sometimes they don't know what they're doing. Sometimes if I own a piece of property and I want to annex into the city, I will request to annex into the city. And I will say I want a specific zone. Now, if I don't know what's going on, if I can't sell the property until someone says, I want to develop that. So they may not know what's going on, so it's difficult to say, well, here's my plan. So what we plan on doing is to ask for a preliminary plan when they come in. So what the city council has to do is say, is this area conducive to that zone? And same with Brown Drive. They have to come in and say, is this area conducive to that zone? That's a decision that has to be made by the planning commission, has to be made by the city council. Now, once that decision is made, then the person wanting to buy the property, or if someone comes to say, I will buy that property from you, then they come in with a preliminary plan that will be addressed to the planning commission, and then the planning commission will review that also and say, that makes sense for what this area is. We see the items that we want. We prefer to do other things. Now, it's a prefer, it's not a demand yet, but they have to meet the regulations in the zoning ordinance and the land development regulation, which is pushing that also. Land development regulation does a couple other things also. It looks at buffers, it looks at additional buffers, it looks at wetland buffers, it looks at different buffers that are not in the zoning ordinance. It's difficult to combine the two into one. And that's, and that's like I said, it's something that we have to look at as we continue on. So once we get that in front of the planning commission, then the planning commission will, if they want, they can take public input on that at that time.
Okay, but in some of the instances that I've been aware of, for instance, I guess Brown Drive might be it, and if I'm wrong, go ahead, you can correct me, but that property, that, of course, it has to be the property owner request the annexation.
Correct.
And I'm clear on that and all the different options as far as annexation. But had the development, in some instances, doesn't the developer come to the city to find out if they can do what they want to do on that property before they purchase that property? Because if they can't do what they want to do, then they're not going to buy that property.
They will ask, but that's not it's my recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, so they can come to me, and this is a dilemma. They come to me and say, will you recommend this? And I'll look at a piece of property and use my best judgment and say either yes or no. Doesn't mean that they will not ask that. They can feel that, say they want to go to R6.
But I'm not trying to put that off on you, so let me back up here, because I'm not trying to put you in the crosshairs.
Well, I mean, that's fine. That's what, yeah.
But, so the developer already has an idea.
Has an idea, right.
So that's what I'm saying, is the developer needs to communicate, this is what Petrea had in the recommendations, that they need to communicate to the neighbors, because that's what has been bringing so many people
Sure.
here, and then, of course, they've been silenced because they have concerns. And you and I have talked about this specifically, about enforcement, going back to the zoning signs.
Right.
Because our zoning signs do not comport with our current zoning ordinances, and you said that, you know, it'd be too expensive to put all that. Well, then have the developer pay for the sign.
But they do comport.
No, they don't. No.
Number 3 says what it's supposed to say. And that's something we can discuss later
I
on.
mean,
We can discuss that. It's a minor
I
issue.
don't have it marked, so
Right.
I'm not gonna go through here, but it has all this information that's supposed to be on the sign. You've not gone through this, so this is not a gotcha.
That's fine.
It's
We'll
we're-
discuss this later.
we're-
I'll show you.
But I mean, we are not compliant with our sign ordinances, and that's just one of this entire booklet here. Has this document been amended for the land development regulations to encourage perimeter buffers and preservation of tree canopies?
On the perimeter buffers, yes.
Okay.
And it's always been on the tree canopies. That has not changed. It's a 24-inch tree. It's always been in there. That still
Well,
is.
if that's
Depends on
right, the 24-inch tree, Indigo Park, they came in there and they just wiped that completely out. There wasn't a tree left in there, and that's another one. It's one entrance. It's more than 51 homes. It only has 2 entrances. The problem is we have a document that we're not currently complying with, and now we're going to vote on another document, and it concerns me, and it's not you. This stuff was handled by people before you, and that's where the problem comes in there, and that's where people are having angst that it's almost like a shell game. We're pretending to do something, but then when it comes down to it, we're not complying with it.
I'm going to try to say as delicately as possible. I've been here since August. Okay, a lot of the stuff was done before I got here. I'm trying, and it's difficult to just come back and tell somebody they have to do something different. Some people will comply easy enough and say, yes, that makes sense, and other people will be a little more difficult. Say, my plan's approved, that's what I'm going to do. So you try to work with them, you try to, and some people, like I said, some people will do it, some people won't. What we try to do is look at the project and try to make sure that it's done properly. We'll never make everyone happy, but we're going to try. And so we have some, and like I said, if that document was perfect, that was a document that's been 100%, and we've already seen all the problems in there. Okay. Now to say, don't change it if you don't like something you're looking for perfection, and you can never find perfection. I can't be perfect. If you want perfect, you got to look for somebody else. But what I'm trying to say is that I am going to do my best to follow that through and to teach people on how to follow through on that. If I see something wrong within a year, or something that's not working, not working correctly, not working like I intended it to work, I will make a change in a year. I'll come back to you and say, please, or less, and say, please, let's look at this. Here's what I'm seeing happening instead of what I anticipated happening. And that's the gist of what I was trying to tell someone earlier. I'm not trying to say, this is it, and this is all it's going to be. I want to make sure that we have flexibility to move this along and make it better for the city of Easley.
And please, this is not personally against you. This is about the document. Okay, so please, this is.
I'm not taking it personal. I'm just trying to make sure.
But I had taken the draft to an AICP person to look at it, and there were some observations by that person. And this is a person that's been actively involved with Greenville, which of course Greenville is much larger than Easley for now. But, they've been working on this for 18 months. And I would just like to, I'm going to make the point again, to have this tabled, not because I think that you haven't done a fine job, but what I see in here and what I see in this draft, there are differences, and it needs to go back to the planning commission, but quite frankly, I would like to suggest that we go back to you, and let's make sure that these recommendations are in here. I mean, has the master plan been completed?
No.
Okay, has there been policy and regulations developed for conservation, protection of, and critical sensitive land? Has there been an inventory of
No,
our?
no, there's no, we can't go on private property inventory. What we have to do is we have to look at a
Has the planning department worked with Pickens County and the school district to monitor trends in growth?
yes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, their trends are worse than, they want to look at a corridor along 123 that would cause more problems for us than anywhere else.
And the school district?
And school district, we deal with them. They do a 15-year plan every year.
I'm still gonna, stand with my recommendations.
And I understand what ASCP stands for, and I understand what they do. Everyone has different ideas. And you look at Greenville, and then you look at Easley.
No, this guy wasn't looking at it that way. He looked at it for Easley, and there were just some things in here. I'm reserved, repeating some of the things
Okay.
he said, and we can discuss it. But I still believe that because in this document, it specifically reads that. The other thing that just drives me nuts is that this thing is from 1999, and the first couple pages, nothing has been changed. So you read in here, coordinate and integrate the city's development review process to provide equitable and efficient procedures for the review of proposed developments. Discourage haphazard, premature, uneconomical, or scattered land development, and promote in the public interest and best utilization. Protect the established character and social and economic well-being of both public and private property. That's why there have been so many people coming to these meetings, because
But that's,
have it here, but it's not being done.
and that's why I left it in there. You don't want me to pull that out, do you? I mean, because if I pull that out, then everyone is talking about it is going to say the same thing.
How can you have tiny home ordinance in here, but the tiny home ordinance is not in here? The document, I think, is a good document. It's a good start, but it's not completed. And in order for this council to make a good decision and a good vote, it needs to be a completed document that we can all look at and ask questions before voting on it. I think you've done.
That's your prerogative, yeah, no problem.
You've done a fantastic job doing it all by yourself, and that's a big challenge to undertake. But I do not see that this document is ready to be voted on.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mario while he's up there?
Thank you all.
Call the question. Well, no,
No, apologies.
questions for Mario. I have a.
You do.
comment. No, I don't have a question for Mario,
Okay.
but I have a comment.
I would remind myself that this is first reading of this ordinance. There will be another reading, presumably. I've heard several people say vote against it, but I did not hear anything specific. And if someone has a specific request or suggestion to change something specific, then please let us know what those specific changes are. I've just heard very general statements. It's not ready, vote against it. Please be specific. Thank you.
Can we have a call for the question?
Call the question.
Call for the question. All in favor of this ordinance, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Thank you. Item 10, which is new resolutions. Resolution 2023-07, certifying properties located at, and I will not read all those, they'll be in the minutes. This is on Cumberland Avenue. This is to get a tax credit for an abandoned textile property. Do I hear a motion? Second? Second. Yeah. All right.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. James, if you don't mind, give a brief description of it.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, this comes to us on behalf of the purchaser of the property seeking tax credits. The government has a way for folks to redeem some of their investment, try to revitalize properties. And so this is what this comes before us as to. And all we're doing is passing a resolution in this regard. We're not approving anything else.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay. Any questions?
Mayor Womack, is anyone from Carolina Estates Properties LLC here this evening?
Yes.
And Charles Wyatt. You're Mr. Wyatt?
Yes.
Mr. Wyatt, to your knowledge, has Robinson Law Firm rendered any legal services to you or your company?
They have, in the sense that I bought a piece of property from a gentleman on Bonita Drive. I believe he did the closing. That's all.
You remember what year that was?
Probably 2022.
And you said Bonita Drive?
Bonita Drive, yeah.
And is that property in any way connected to the property on Cumberland Avenue?
No, it's not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any more questions concerning this property? And I'm sorry. I mentioned in the work session, you're tearing down just a portion of the building, right? Just that one building that's got the termite damage, right?
Yes, there is a two-story building there that's been heavily damaged by termites.
Yeah.
We're going to be removing that part of the building.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
But it's more like 4, is it 5 properties? It's not just the one building, correct?
Yes,
It's 104.
There's 4 properties.
Okay. And I hear that y'all are planning on building a brewery. Is that correct?
Not planning on,
Okay.
we don't know what the direction's going right now, but it's going to be basically for our direction to the Blue Trail.
Okay.
That's what I'm planning.
No townhomes or apartments or anything?
Nothing not getting with that.
Okay. And this will be submitted to the planning commission. Is that correct?
Now that,
Still get site plan review on this. So the planning, there was a site plan review committee that will review it. If it gets to a certain
When it gets to
point,
that
we can have the planning commission look at it. But if it meets all the regulations, then it's just go forward.
okay. Any other questions? Call for question. And remember, this is just a resolution, only requires one vote. All in favor of this resolution, raise your right hand. Any opposed? Show it passed. And I do want to remind you, before I ask for a motion to adjourn, that we do have a council meeting on Thursday, correct?
That is correct, 5:30.
Thursday at 5:30. And I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.